do IT better. Welcome to our podcast designed for digital product builders, product owners, startup founders, and everyone who's into product building. You'll meet our colleagues from Polcode's product design and development teams. We'll be sharing our experiences gained during managing complex IT projects for global clients in SaaS businesses, fintech, education, e-commerce, and many more. Since Polcode's foundation in 2006, we've completed over 1,000 projects. By putting the best quality, partner approach, and trustworthiness on top of our services, we are now ready to share our tips and stories we've gained. Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. My name is Joanna Jabłońska, JJ for short, and I will be the host of the new tech podcast called Do IT Better. The podcast is created by Polcode and all the amazing people that work here. Every episode, I will have the pleasure to talk with great individuals and real experts in their fields. The subject of the first episode is it's all about the users, so we will discuss why the users are so important for the product development. Today, I'm joined by Maria Sapon and Miłosz Lisiecki, who both have their professional roots in product management. Maria, Miłosz, pleased to have you here.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello. It's nice to be here.
Pleasure to have you here as well. Let me start by stating that the episode is only an intro to the vast topic of product development. We will touch on some of the following topics, but surely we will dwell upon each of them in separate episodes. So, guys, what are we talking about today?
Well, we will discuss why users are at the heart of the product development, and we will talk a little bit also about what we are really selling to people. And here, little spoiler, it's not a product.
Exactly. We will also speak about how to create your product idea, and especially we'll make some accent on how to validate your product idea on the market to see if it fits the user's needs and why it's so important to talk to your users.
Also, I can promise that we will give some examples. All right, to hit the ground running, Maria, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, of course. So I entered IT a few years ago, and since then, probably my passion lies in product development. And especially as fast as product building is, I do find joy in product discovery, as well as in searching for user problems based on user feedback. So I'm experienced in building e-commerce, fintech, intranet, and SaaS products. And at Polcode, I manage a company's product along with the product consultations I conduct for our clients who simply require help building a product vision, strategy, and who struggle with the product direction in general and how to analyze where this product should go. And personally, when I'm off work, I'm into a lot of different things, among others, sports in general, books, languages, and just spending some quality time with the closest people.
Sounds fun, I admit. Miłosz, what about yourself?
I'm a PMO team lead at Polcode, experience in product ownership and management in many business fields, like banking, like chemical industry, like new modern technologies, also a little bit working with AI. I love sharing my experience, creating some actionable ideas, and I love sharing information about management and in IT. My special weakness is agile methodologies, Scrum especially, and I'm interested in building user-friendly applications, solving both customers and business problems. I love win-win situations, and that's what I'm trying always to achieve with my people. And I'm also passionate about continuous improvement. Privately, I'm a big music lover with vinyls literally everywhere.
Sounds interesting. So at least now we know who hums when manages a project.
Yeah, exactly. JJ, could you share a few words about yourself?
Of course. I am a delivery team leader at Polcode, bringing together managers, developers, and clients to successfully execute and deliver the projects. I have a background in linguistics and a passion for the intricacies of human psychology. So it means that I strive to constantly improve communication and cultivate the growth of my team. In my free time, I delve into nonfiction literature and nonfiction podcasts to deepen my understanding of the world we live in and the people we are.
So now I know why we are creating a podcast here with such a big podcast lover.
They say dreams come true, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, so now that we have set up a scenery, let's dive into the topic. And I would like to begin with the most important question. Creating a podcast, is it a project or is it a product?
Well, my soul is divided. I'm currently working more with the projects, but my roots are in the product. So I'm like really divided.
Yeah, and I, being a product manager slash product owner, I have the answer to that question, but let's keep it a secret and not reveal it until the end of the episode.
Okay, so if Maria wants to keep us on our toes, let me proceed with a question that hopefully we will get the answer to immediately. So basically, what I would like to begin, I have always wondered how to start with a product. I never knew where to look for the idea, which product to build. So, do you have any suggestions where to start?
Yeah, this is probably the trickiest question ever. Everyone is thinking, how should I start a product? And the answer is pretty simple, actually. You just look out for a market gap. So you look out whenever you have a gap on the market that can be fulfilled with a potential product. And there are definitely different dimensions of how to define a product market gap. And we will dive into it in a second.
Yeah, I would say that this market gap can be found in a lack of existing solution in the market. But also another approach that you can use is to try to search for it in a changing or growing needs of your target audience. And the gap might be in some very specific needs, problems that your target audience has, and those problems have so far no market response.
Yeah, that's one of the probably most common market gaps on out there. But I would also stress out the situations when you actually have already an existing product, but it might be not complex enough. So the problem of your users might be so complex that the current solutions that already exist on the market simply do not solve that problem because they are not complex enough.
Okay, that all sounds interesting, but can you give any good example of such solution?
Of course, like this is exactly why marketplace began to flourish because that was the answer to the complex problem of the user, and this is a complex solution. Of course, there existed already e-commerces previously before marketplace started to grow, but e-commerces were not complex enough, so they didn't answer to the user's needs, and those needs were simply to be able to see all of different products in one place without the necessity to go into different places, into different web platforms to look for a product you'd like to buy. And this is a complex solution. Marketplace was the answer to it.
I would maybe give another example also that's coming to my mind. A few months ago, we have completed working on a solution for the parents of Polish kids who are seeking for the hospital for their kids, but not only like basic information like the address or telephone number, but also more complex information like where to find a gate, is there a parking lot, where is the registration office, and so on, so and so. What to take with themselves also when they are going to visit, for example, their kids. And there was no such complex solution for that. You know, people had to search for just sides of hospitals. Each site was completely different, having different information. So with one of the foundations where we have created that solution, and it was just simply not existing. So it was a possibility to fulfill this gap. And coming back to where to find the market gap and how to work with that, maybe another example would be that you can find it in the way how the problem is being currently solved in the market. So the solutions that are existing, they might be too complicated or just too complex also. Sometimes too specific to some just snippet of the market, or just simply not too user friendly.
Absolutely. A great example of that can be the well known task manager Jira, which has been used throughout the whole world by different industries. But again, if that solution was complex enough, or rather uncomplex enough for specific industries, then the competition wouldn't have appeared. And I mean here, for example, such a product as Monday. Monday.com is being used by different teams throughout the world, especially, for example, by marketing teams who find Jira being simply too complex or too unuser friendly for their purposes. And this is where you can find a gap. So there can be already a product that exists on the market, but it's simply not the way that this industry requires.
And maybe sometimes you can also find your space for your business, for your product in some group preferences. And it may express in everything, like starting from the origin of your company or other companies that are in the market, the branding, other products that they offer, services, the customer service level that they have, and so on and so on. So you can just simply find that maybe there are some people who dislike something about your competitors, potential ones, and it might be also a space for you.
Speaking of customer service, I think Slack would be a good example as they are known for their very good, outstanding, actually, customer service, right?
Totally agree. So, of course, Slack is a great product in itself, and we have no doubts over that. But I really enjoy the way they work with their target audience and with their users. I've actually followed them on LinkedIn, and I see sometimes how they respond to some of their users and how witty, funny, and to the point they are, and not over promising. So, I really love that community.
Great. Okay. So with the market gap, we already know how to identify it, what it's based on, and where it comes from. Would you tell us a bit more about needs changing? You briefly mentioned this at the start of our conversation.
True, that's something where you can also find the market gap because the changes in the user needs are so rapid and so drastic recently that you need to be able to keep up with them. And you can find a lot of different examples on the market who constantly evolve to be able to keep up with the user needs. Probably Instagram is a great example because we all have seen where it all started. It all started with simply posting a picture and writing a few words to describe the picture or your mood or whatever. And then it evolved into something completely different. For example, we now have Reels. Of course, we've had them already for a while, but Reels is another step that requires or simply involves more user activity. And that is a direct response to the changing user needs.
We can also take a look at this as an international hub for completely different audience. You have different people here in Europe, different audience in States, different in Asia, different in Africa, and we are talking only about the geographic differences, and there is many more layers that you need to take a look at. And now they in Instagram need to focus on meeting universal needs, so all those people will feel that they want to use Instagram. So therefore, the creativity is very limited in creating some new, fresh solutions. They are rather observing market, cloning something that is like universally adopted or liked by people, and they just adapt those solutions to Instagram or their products in general.
Right. Let's face it, every product has this phase when they've grown so much that they lack the ideas how to expand their influence and how to bring in new users. So they simply observe the market and they use some of the ideas their competition uses and develop those ideas into something bigger and better. Because, at the end of the day, there is nothing new under the sun.
So, to leave the realm of reels and selfies for a minute, I wanted to ask you a more important question. What do you think the future holds?
Very good question. And here I'm just taking my crystal ball and let's dive into it. I believe that the thing that the future will bring is more automation and more digitalization.
Sure.
I wouldn't be very outstanding saying that AI brings here a lot of potential in automation of processes, especially those repetitive and based on some kind of criteria analysis, recommendations, something that you can scale, something that you have some probes of data and you can just use it, enlarge it to different areas. So something that is not maybe very much going into discovery of new things, but into analyzing something deeper and deeper and with more layers and dimensions to what's already known and what people are doing. So, good example here is to digitalize reporting processes based on some kind of categorization of real life text, for example. Another potential market are robotics, and here I'm not talking only about the physical ones that like they have in Japan, the robotic nurses. Japan is completely different world. I mean, they are very modern. It's not going to happen everywhere in the same time, but I'm talking about rather bots, so like automatic AVRs supported with bots, like these ones that we can, for example, implement here in Polkadot in cooperation with our partner Twilio. There is still also wide potential idea for visionaries. So probably you guys listening to us now to research and find potential fields that are manual or semi-manual and could be automated. Like, for example, they found one day that the book is something completely, manual, yes, and it could be digitalized. Oh, maybe there was one person who found it before. I'm talking about Lamb, but it happened. So there is more potential fields for something that's it's manual and could be optimized.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it's all up to the perspective that you hold, because everything can be digitalized, especially when we speak about different countries and the processes they have inside. Here, I would like to bring an example of the country I currently reside at, so Poland, and my mother country, which is Ukraine. And those two countries are abreast of other countries in terms of digitalization of, for example, financial market or banking sphere. So everything that is related to banking and managing your account can be done online in those countries. But when I look at our Western neighbors, I see that there is so much more field to grow and so much more room to fulfill. And those processes are not simply covered in some of the Western countries. So maybe when you start a digitalization revolution, you might look into the solutions that some countries already have and others don't. And that's your market gap.
And just to cover that, what Maria said, like 10 years ago, a bit more, I used to study in Berlin, which is Germany, of course. After working few years in a financial institution in Poland, I was shocked about the difference and about the potential for development in banking sector here that in Germany they had in comparison to Poland. So it may happen also in well-developed countries. So some kind of hope for you guys.
Exactly, because some countries are simply not completely ready for that kind of a revolution. But that's totally normal. So please, whenever you find the market gap, make sure that people are ready for whatever you bring in, the solution that you bring in. Because, for example, in Germany, people are a little bit more reluctant to modern technologies in such spheres. I'm not saying about all of those. So please remember that a market gap is not everything. You need also to think about the target audience.
Well, that's true. I guess that, as in many other aspects of life, you will find people who remain skeptic. But I guess that if you want to become successful, you cannot deny that digitalization is an important aspect of the future and a big perk to get it, get it done, digitalize things instead of doing them manually. To sum up, people who are building the product basically must identify the market gap, study their target audience, and build the product according to the needs of the latter. But talking about the future, what could have happened if we had sold the product based on our idea of user problems without actually studying what the needs are?
I would have here one example that is coming to my mind, and it's pretty obvious, well known. And there was a lot of people talk about it, so maybe it will be not the most fresh thing, but I'm talking about the Google Plus. So their social platform that was going to compete with Facebook, and it's end up with being called one of the bigger fails in the history of IT. Why? Because it was designed, the interaction of people in the social media like Google Plus were designed no from the user's perspective, but Google was trying to persuade people to do something as they wanted them to do. So there were those circles. I don't know, girls. Do you remember it? Have you used it?
No,
Vaguely.
not actually.
No,
No.
it was pretty popular those days with IT guys, and actually not much outside of it. So they found, some geek area only, and they were not able to enlarge their scale that much of users' interest. And those circles, these were some kind, as far as I remember it correctly, there were some kind of groups you could define around yourself. And, it was possible that I had in this group some people, but those people could not have me in their group, their circle for some reason. And still, if they were in my circle, they were sharing things to me, even if I was not added by them to their group of interest. So it ended up with sharing some information that were not strictly define them to be shared in that way. By that, I mean they were sharing, for example, parts of the emails or some pictures or some other private things. And those privacy concerns here just made people possibly not interested much in this product, as they just didn't trust it, and they didn't understand how to work on these privacy issues. Of course, they could set up it, but it was just not very user friendly, not intuitive, maybe enough. Also, so first they probably should make some research with the target audience that they wanted to have, and then maybe adapt their theories to it. But it looked like they tried to did it in the opposite way.
Yeah, so to answer your question, JJ, that's quite dangerous to actually release a product that you've never researched before, where you didn't find a proper market gap and you didn't validate it with your users. So then you have examples such as Google Plus, as Miłosz described. But this is exactly what I'd like to accent on. because it's extremely important to come up with a market gap, to think of the target audience that will be using your product, and then to create the MVP version, so minimal viable product. And whenever you create this minimal viable product, it's extremely important to validate it with your early adopters, with users who can provide you feedback regarding the product that you're building, not necessarily the product that you have already built. You can find a great example in the Lean Startup book by Eric Rice. So I will not go into a lot of details regarding the validation, how important it is, because this book perfectly describes the situation. And this is something that everyone needs to remember, that you need to validate your product with your user. In other cases, anything that you develop in your product, either it's a bad UX, or your users will feel lost, or they do not understand what problem that you are solving, then your users will leave and will not use your product. As simple as that.
Business owners need to understand how to identify and solve problems. What's more, they need to have in mind the needs of the target audience and how they can impact not only the growth, but also the existence of their products. So, generally speaking, I understand that to guarantee the success of your product, you need to identify the market gap, but also you need to learn about the target audience and you need to try to understand the needs. But I guess the question that comes to my mind at this stage is how to determine who those people are.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And as I mentioned before, indeed, market gap comes hand in hand with the target audience. So basically speaking, if you're able to find the market gap, then I'm pretty sure that you know who your target audience is, because if there is a market gap somewhere in some sphere, there should be the users that potentially are affected by that market gap. And it should not be that difficult. For example, you might think about an idea, like you see that people need to buy their insurance for their car in the country that you're currently located at. And basically, there are different platforms that offer different insurances. So there are companies that offer the insurances, but there is no platform that simply works as a marketplace. So where you can see all of those insurances from different companies and compare them. And if you find that this is a market gap, so there is no like marketplace for car insurances comparison platform, then you know that the target audience that is affected by that market gap are the car drivers. So as easy as that, you are able to identify. Then you need to narrow it down to specific people, specific ages. But this is something that comes next.
Yeah, and to do it and just to give you some idea how it is done, maybe I would say that you need to understand who you are creating this application for, and you need to analyze different groups of your end users. And you can do it by geographic location, as I mentioned before, but also you can divide them by geographic structure, so by age, by gender, by their computer literacy, because you will have to create and design your product in a slightly or even more than slightly different way to those people who are elders, or to, I don't know, lawyer who is working in the computer every day like 12 hours a day, and to teens, for example. Yes, you can define them by profession, by their background, education, language, of course, culture, style of communication. So, all those factors that we can call in total as demographic segmentation.
This is exactly what I said. So you identify the market gap, you know what target audience is affected by that market gap, and then you narrow it down to specific segments or specific groups that will be using your platform at the end of the day. And a great example probably is one of the clients that I consulted here at Polcode. They had a great idea to build an application for children in far east countries. The only problem that we face there is that that application that the client wanted to build was targeted at children in different ages. And by different, I mean starting from children who couldn't read yet because they were too young, up to the teenagers and young adults who would be easily bored by the content that is presented to 4-year-olds. So when you create an application that should fit such a vast amount of target users, it's a great challenge. And the best way here, when you create your MVP version, is to narrow it down, to identify the target group, the target audience. Even if you'd like to solve the problem for all of those children that I just previously mentioned, I mean, like in that target group, in that age, then it is the best to start off your MVP with the most common target audience. So probably to deliver a product that solves the problem for children, at least who can read.
Maybe one more tip when you are doing this, please focus also on the role design solution. So, what they are going to do, how they will influence your business model, because you are influencing yourself in both ways. They are influencing your model and you are influencing their life. And try to find, as I said, I'm a fan of win win situation and try to find it also here.
With that being said, I think we smoothly transitioned into building personas. For now, I would like to leave it a cliffhanger because we will talk about user experience and personas in the upcoming episodes. Instead, I would like to imagine a theoretical situation. I have already created my product and I know my audience, or at least I think so. So, what would be the next step?
Another great question. You're on fire today, JJ. But yeah, once you know your target audience, so you've done your research, you know the market gap, you know the audience, you narrowed it down. So as we said, and as the title of our episode says, it's all about the users. So it's time to start validating your idea. So it's so-called stage validation. So it's time to bring your product, either it's already a built product, so MVP, or it's only on the prototypes, but you are to share your product with your potential users, so with people who are actually will be using your product in the future, and to gather their sincere feedback, because without their feedback and without the changes that you will be able to implement based on their feedback, there is no guarantee that your product will hit the market and have success.
And for this validation, we often use customer feedback loop in product development.
So, to make a loop and coming back to the beginning of this section, can you elaborate on customer feedback loop, what it is and why is it important?
Customer feedback loop is a method used to constantly verify with your users how they use the product, what's important in this product for them, what's their opinion, collect their feedback about the product, and that will utilize to improve the quality of your product just simply in the regular basis.
Totally. And I also said in my intro that I'm very much into talking to users and validating ideas. So I really adore the concept of customer feedback loop. And there are some specific methods that I find very insightful. For example, user interviews combined with usability tests, those make a wonder.
So, speaking of them, do not leave us in the dark. And can you shed more light on what user interviews are?
Absolutely right. So, as I said, user interviews and usability tests, they are all a part of customer feedback loop. If it works good for you, then you will find a lot of really great insights into your product. And simply those methods, like user interview, for example, works as simple as that you reach out to your users and you ask them specific questions about specific problems that you are considering to change in your product. And with the help of their feedback, you are able to understand how your user uses your product and what they like or dislike in your product. Do they have any workaround in your product? Because maybe they face some problem and they have already created some workaround. So you are able within that user interview or simply in the customer feedback loop, you are able to ask really good questions that will help you identify your weak points and improve your product.
So, once again, I guess it proves that communication and language are the key to success in a way.
Totally. Totally.
Yes, always, I would say, always. And surely, especially when the users are at the heart of your business owners must be smart about how to implement the user's feedback, remembering about what impact it causes on the business. By that, I mean that sometimes you can focus on some edge cases and it might be not exactly the best strategy. You have to remember that you will not be able to just cover all the needs your users will have and all the possible complaints that they will have about your product. You have to be smart in collecting that. What's the most important? That's what's the most repeating maybe in this feedback, and what will also give you the highest revenue simply.
Absolutely. When doing the customer feedback loop, you need to be very, very attentive and cautious because this process can be dangerous for people who are not ready enough. Because indeed, whenever you collect the feedback, that feedback can be so vast and it can concern so many problems at the same time. Then you need to be very smart about choosing what problem to solve next. Typically, you can do it when you know that your product has this particular vision and solving that or this problem of your users fit into that vision or fit into your product strategy that you have built according to the vision. But of course, please do take into consideration exactly what Miller said, the problem impact. So how that problem that you're trying to solve for your user impacts your business, but also what kind of an output and as well outcome it has for your users.
So, the main takeaway here would be that there are many tools and methods. You have to find the one that is the most suitable for you. And the most important thing, we got to talk to each other. So, people who launch their product should constantly check with users what they need in the product for it to be appealing. Additionally, they need to carefully consider if what they are about to implement will have a positive impact on their business. We will talk about product vision, business models, and business impacts in the upcoming episodes. It is my understanding, and sorry, I will put it in simple terms maybe, that business owners must constantly seek user problems and they need to come up with effective solutions. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're getting it completely right. So, indeed, if you want to have a successful product or a product that users simply want to use, you need to constantly seek the user problems. So, customer feedback loop or the continuous discovery process is called continuous and is called loop for a reason because you need to constantly do it to seek those problems, to understand what your users still need or what they lack. Because at the end of the day, again, we are selling not the product, but the solution to user problems.
And it's no matter if you sell your product to customers, like in the B2C market, or to another businesses, your product can be only successful if it's really wanted by your audience. If the user's problem is not solved by your product, chances of success are not that high, even if it's, let's say, entertainment app. You can say that entertainment app, it's maybe an exception because it's just providing some videos, sometimes some games or something like that, so it's not really solving any problem. But look at that, There are people who are, tired, stressed up after their work or whatever it's happening in their life. And they want to entertain, to relax, to stress down. So you're still solving some kind of problem they have. It still needs to do that job properly. So it needs to entertain people by doing that and solving the problem. So, what I'm trying to say by that is that when they have created TikTok, they don't sell exactly a TikTok, they sell entertainment. So, they sell the service they provide, they don't sell the product itself.
Exactly. So even if your purpose or your problem that you've identified is simply entertainment, this is what you sell. You don't sell the app itself or the product itself. Another great example probably is the way that we currently are ordering a taxi. So we know the service, the taxi service existed already for, I don't know, a couple of centuries for sure. But currently, having the Bolt or Uber applications, we do not actually sell the service, or do we?
Bolt and other taxi apps, well, you know the price. You know when you will get to home, for example, who will you drive with. So, look, they also solve problems.
Exactly. So they do not sell the service itself. They solve the problem that we all faced previously. So we didn't know for sure how much it would cost us to get from point A to point B. We didn't know exactly who would be driving and what car would arrive to our place to pick us up. So those are the problems that it solved for us. And this is exactly what they are selling.
So, to paraphrase JFK's famous lines, ask not what you can do for your product, ask what you can do for its users, right?
Perfect. Yes.
Yes, I like it.
So I'm not sure if if JFK approves, but to move on. So the main point here is that when you are promoting the product, you need to promote not what the product does, but what problem it solves. So basically not the product itself, but the solution.
Exactly. So you need to be constantly looking out what new problems appear so that you can solve them and sell them to your users. Especially nowadays, the market is changing at speed, right? Literally. So you need to be constantly verifying what's happening on the market to understand if the solution that you offer is still valuable to users. I would even bring a great example of Netflix, right? So that's a big company that offers great user problem solution, which is entertainment again. And all of us know their story. If you don't, you can read the book about how Netflix started and what they've done through the years. But even they are currently facing right now some issues with keeping their users at their product. That's why they are introducing massive changes to their business model at the first place, because we all know that they are changing the way that you can now subscribe to their platform. They are introducing some policies and some even functionalities that would prevent us from sharing our accounts with other people. They implement even advertisement into their subscription models, and it's all done to keep up with the market and to have still influence on your users and still have the revenue needed.
Yes, exactly. Those changes are also showing us that they are actually, when you think about this, they really use the product discovery processes and customer feedback loop just behind all of this. And it's showing how important it is to find the user problem and design the best solution for it.
Are there any other techniques beside the ones you have already mentioned?
I would mention tools like Hotjar or Heatmap. They will help you to analyze how users are behaving, where they are clicking, where they are looking at. It can also find you to identify your product's pain points. That's, for example, might be too many clicks at the checkout process. So the low conversion rate. It could be surprising sometimes, because you can figure out that something that you believed it will be like really, really nice thing and it will be game changer is not working, but something that was a minor thing really does a job. So yeah, it's worth it to use it.
Yeah, so I second that. Hotjar and heat map tools are very useful when you'd like to see what exactly is happening in your product. And me personally, I use different techniques and methods and tools, and it depends whether I'd like to collect a quantitative or qualitative results. And maybe if I'm looking more into quantitative results, then I send out a user service to my users to collect their ideas and what they want to have in their product on a mass scale. But if I like to concentrate on a qualitative results, then I definitely choose usability tests. I definitely choose user interviews. And from those kind of methods, really great things can happen. I have a lot of different examples that prove me that talking to users and looking at what they are doing while you ask them some specific questions can provide you with unexpected but brilliant things.
As a user who answered a couple of Maria's questions, I can swear by what she's saying. Definitely, it's nice to see when your feedback is implemented later on into the product.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And those are the perks of developing an intranet product.
I agree. Definitely, yes. When building a product for the users, first and foremost, bear in mind the necessity to discover and solve user problems. Remember to promote what your app fixes for community, not what the app does. To do that, you can perform several different tests like user interviews, usability tests, and utilize different tools. So, before we finish our conversation today, I would like to sum up with you guys the recommendations, the main takeaways that we talked about in our conversation. So, if you don't mind, I will start with saying that people who want to build a product need to find a product gap and determine what kind of audience is affected by this gap. So then, when I have some general idea, I need to narrow it down. I need to find the individuals who would be impacted, and this is my target group. And I need later on, I need to concentrate on understanding this particular group's problem. Anything else that would be important?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you know the problem that you are trying to solve, you need simply to understand who those people are that are affected by your problem. And you need to simply build a solution for that problem and start selling it. And by identifying that problem, you are able to build the minimal viable product, or at least on prototypes. And this is where you start validating your idea together with your potential users.
And this validation happens when you reach out to your users using so-called customer feedback loop and all what it gives. So user interviews, usability tests, surveys, tools like Hotjar or Heatmap, and they all serve as methods of the customer feedback loop. It's important to use this customer feedback loop as it will provide you with new ideas and can validate the assumptions that you did before.
So, only by validating your product and talking to your users, you will know if the product really solves the problem and whether it solves the problem for users. Also, you need to take into consideration that you may stand corrected and it turns out you were wrong with the problem. And this is the perfect moment to change the direction. So,
Exactly.
to come back to the original, the very first question asked on this episode, is podcast a project or a product?
Yeah. So to come back to that original question, I would definitely say that we are building a product. So we are trying to build here a product according to the market gap. So we identify that there is a market gap and there is there lacks simply information on how to build product correctly. And now we identified our target audience and we are trying to reach out to them.
Yes. But always when you are doing a product, You can also inside have little projects, I would say also.
A PMO has said, right?
Exactly. Well, in Scrum, for example, they also call each sprint is a little project. So, yeah.
I think it's
So-
a debate for another episode.
So, to all the people out there, if you listen carefully, feel free to let us know which side you voted for, project or product.
And let us know your feedback, because as building a product is very important, as is the product or customer feedback loop. So feel free to reach out.
So I believe that at this stage there is nothing else left for me but to thank you so much, Maria and Migos, for joining us today. Thank you. It was a great pleasure, and you had very interesting insight.
It was exciting to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great. A great pleasure indeed. Thank you, JJ, for all your great questions.
Thank you as well. And also many thanks to our listeners as well. Stay tuned to learn how to do IT better. In our next episode, we will explore the strategy and vision to take a look on how to build solid foundations of your business and product. Talk to you next time.